The first time I met today's speaker, Dr. Suppiah, was at a leadership conference 6 years ago. A mutual friend of ours thought we had a lot in common, so he connected us. And after a few really good conversations about what we were doing, where we were going, each of us, Ara called me one day and said, "Jerry, I love what you're doing with this leadership stuff. I think it's really important and really valuable, but I'm not going to follow you." I said, "Why not?" He said, "You're not going to make it." I said, "Of course I'm going to make it. I'm crystal clear on my path and plan and what I'm doing." And he said, "Jerry, you're mentally clear, but physically, for what you're trying to accomplish, your body's going to break down and you're going to get sick." I said, "Sick? Like what?" He said, "Well, it could be a lot of things, but like cancer." And then he said something I'll never forget. He said, "You better make a lot of money doing this because chemotherapy is really expensive." And he was serious. That hit me so hard, I said, "I don't like that option, so what can I do?" And he gave me a pretty simple formula to follow. And I got to tell you that 6 years later now, my energy level and the amount of fun I'm having in my business is higher than it's ever been in my career. Going to talk to you about a few reasons why the best athletes in the world, or the ones that want to become number one in the world, I don't know where that clicker is. You got it, dummy. Give it to me. Which one do I push? The green one. They call me high-tech Lujan for a reason. So literally, people that want to become number one in the world hire this guy. Here's a couple of things that he's done and is doing. He's the founder of the Functional Sports Medicine Institute. He's the chief medical analyst for NBC Sports and the Golf Channel. He's a practicing emergency room physician. He's the personal physician for players on the PGA, LPGA, ATP, and WTA tours in tennis. He has been the USA Ryder Cup team doctor on this last year's winning team. He's an assistant professor at UCF Medical School. He's a medical contributor to the Golf Digest. And a few years ago, he was the personal physician for 7 of the 8 major winners in golf and tennis. The best thing about Ara in what he's going to share today about what he works with when he works with the Ryder Cup and the number one players in the world, literally, is it applies to any and all of us. So please listen. You're in for a treat. Please welcome my dear friend and brother, Dr. Ara Suppiah.
Thank you. So when I was 13 years old, I wanted to be 6'4" and German, because I wanted to be like Boris Becker, and I wanted to be the first Malaysian to play at Wimbledon, right? But my mom said tennis is not a job, okay? And if you're Indian like me, there's only 3 professions. You either become a physician, you become an attorney, or nowadays, after you get your PhD, you can be a telemarketer. Okay? That's it. You got 3 choices. So I got a scholarship, went off to medical school, and that's when I realized something. For the first time I studied this, I was doing research in the labs, and researchers are very interesting people. They study relationships, right? So like in that graph there, they are studying the relationship from one side to the other side. And if all the data points fall like that, they are so happy, because that means they can show a relationship, their research is funded, they're going to be a professor, Nobel Prize, blah, 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 right? But I was always perplexed about this one little thing here, these blips, the outliers. And so I would ask them, I was like, hey, what about this data here? And they would say, legally and statistically, you can ignore this because it doesn't follow the trend of the average. What I came to find out was those are the Muhammad Alis of this world, the Michael Jordans, the Misty Copelands, Simone Biles, Tiger Woods, and titans of industry, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. Those are the ones, right? So I spent best part now, 20 years of my life, studying, training, working, trying to understand those outliers. And I believe like everyone in this room is in that category. I don't think anyone here is average, okay? So from there, I went on to work with a whole slew of athletes. So these are the current stable of athletes I have. And I'll show you two secrets. I want to share two intimate secrets about work. And when you work with them deeply and see the behind the stage, what they do, two things come up. One is they are very clear about themselves. They are very clear about what they're good at. They're even more clear about what their weaknesses are, okay? And they are very good at creating strategies to help them do what they're good at and delegate everything else that they need help with, okay? So what they are able to do is with that level of clarity, they are able to put forth a strategy that allows them to go perform, okay? But in order to execute that strategy, they also need a ton of energy, right? So today's presentation, Jerry's going to come back at the end and talk about the clarity piece because I think that's really important. Because if you have all the energy in the world and you're not clear about what you need to do, you're going to struggle. And that's the difference between the world-class athletes and the amateurs who couldn't make it as a pro. They weren't clear, okay? And I'm going to focus the rest of my talk on the energy piece. Now, the second secret I realized when it came to all of this, so these are all the Hall of Famers that I've met or worked with. You see Arnold Palmer there, Martina Navratilova, Sir Stephen Redgrave. These people here, when you watch them on TV, when you hear about them, and you see them do the outrageous things that they do in their sport, the assumption is they're working on these really difficult, tough concepts. And that's so far from the truth. What they work on over and over and over and over again is the basics, the mundane, boring stuff, right? They know the basics so well. World-class athletes, if you're writing this down, write this down. World-class athletes are world-class at the basics, okay? And we live at a time where now there's so much information and rather more and more opinions on that little few facts that we have, okay? So these people, in their crafts, they're able to distill down a few things, and they master this every single day. So that's the principle I want to apply to you guys today, and ladies, okay? What I'm going to teach you today is based on the fact that these are basics, that if you do these basics, your life will change. I guarantee this. There are members in the crowd here that I've helped out already, and they've come back today, last night, and came up and said that to me, right? So does this apply to you? Jerry said it does. Well, I love the statement from Nike, right? Nike says if you have a body, you're an athlete. I will add to this that all of you in this room are corporate athletes. You have the same challenges as a professional athlete. Most of you travel, which means you're going to be eating on the road, sleeping in different time zones, hotels, being away from your family. That's the competitive edge that you're always looking because the competition is right there, right? You're always trying to win. So these things are exactly what my athletes deal with. So what I'm going to tell you is completely relevant as it is to them as it is going to be to you, okay? And the information that I share with you is virtually exactly what I tell my athletes. It's going to sound really simple, but I told you, I profess by starting and saying, it's the basics. They don't cut corners on the basics, okay? With that said, let's start with fueling. Now, I use the word fueling rather than diets or nutrition because it's a strategy. I want to talk about how to fuel your body for energy, okay? Not to lose weight, not to look good in a bikini, really for energy, to execute on what you need to do for your job, okay? And it's kind of weird now that we live at a time when what to eat has become so complicated, right? There's keto, there's paleo, there's low fat, there's no fat, there's high fat, there's carnivore, there's Mediterranean, there's vegan, I mean, it's just insane. How many of you feel this? Put your hands up. How many of you, you are confused as to, what you're supposed to follow? Right? I'll tell you, most of my pro athletes are not like that. They're very clear. It's a very simple strategy that they follow. And if you think about it, I spent some time with the Hadza tribe in Tanzania, and I got to see the animals in the wild. Animals don't think like that. A lion doesn't wake up one day and go, I think I want to be keto today. A giraffe doesn't wake up and go, I don't think I can be a vegan. I just want to try some meat. It doesn't happen. They're very clear, right? So life becomes very simple. The one thing about all of this, if you take any diet, the one thing I'll tell you for performance, for energy, is to keep your blood sugar under control. Okay? So you see that graph there? That's, if you eat on a regular basis, your blood sugar will be stable like that. It won't be low, it won't be high. You don't want spikes and crashes. Really important. If your blood sugar can look like this, your energy level will be high and stable and consistent and predictable, which then has a profound effect on mental focus, willpower, and clarity. Okay? Really, really important. If you can keep your blood sugar under control, you will keep your mind, your energy, and your focus under control, right? So a lot of the work with my athletes is, when I give nutritional advice, is primarily to do this. Now, whatever way they need to do this, we can discuss that, but the goal is to keep the blood sugar under control, right? What you don't want is this. And I see this a lot with people who are doing intermittent fasting, because you go long periods without eating, and then you eat 2 pizzas, right? And what happens is you spike your blood sugar like that. Now, if you spike your blood sugar like this, you'll shoot up. It will come crashing down, because that's what the body does. The body doesn't want very high levels of blood sugar. So it'll bring it straight down. And when you do that, and you yo-yo your blood sugar like this, your mental focus goes, you have no willpower, you're highly irritable, right? And you cannot execute consistently. It becomes very unpredictable. So imagine this. Imagine this blood sugar on the final round of the PGA Tour. Imagine this blood sugar in someone who's doing endurance races in the Olympics. No chance, right? No chance you can do this. So you want to avoid this as much as possible, right? So here's a very simple tool that I can tell you. How do you control your blood sugar? How do you make sure you don't have major spikes, okay? If you're on the road, I want you to start with this. Most of you have seen a food label, correct? Come on, correct? Yes, okay. So food label looks like this, and you have no idea whether this is going to spike your blood sugar or not, right? So very, very simple formula. You take the fat, the protein the fat at the top, the protein at the bottom, and you see the dietary fiber. You add all those 3 up. If you add those 3 up, and they work out to be more than the total carbs Okay, so in this case, it's 0.5, 0.5, and 5. If that adds up to be, okay, in this case, it's less, but if that adds up to be more than the total carbs, that 23, that thing's not going to spike your blood sugar. Okay? So you can eat that, and that's going to be fine. As a snack, it's going to be great. Even as a meal, it's going to be great. Okay? But if the total protein, fats, and fiber is less, like in this particular label, it's less than the total carbs, this is going to spike your blood sugar. Okay? Now, if you have nothing else to eat and you got to eat this, and it spikes your blood sugar, this is another cheat. If you add fat, so if you consume fat, peanut butter, nuts, anything like that, with something that's going to spike your blood sugar, it will slow it down. You won't get as much of a spike. All right? And for those of you who are interested, we're going to do a webinar to cover this in way more depth. But if you look up the Harvard's glycemic index, it lists food items on a scale of 1 to 100. 100 is the most glycemic, meaning if you eat that, it is going to spike your blood sugar. So white table sugar is 100. White rice is 100. Okay? And on the other end, you have quinoa, sweet potatoes, things like that. Most vegetables are low glycemic. So you can look that up, Harvard's glycemic index. And that way you can put a food plan together, okay? Now, once you have this, what about eating on a regular basis? I showed you all those diets, right? It's very, very confusing. This is what we did with the Ryder Cup team for the last 3 years. This is what I did in Europe. This is what I do with a lot of my athletes. When they ask me this, it's as simple as this. 1/2 of the plate, 50% of the plate is fiber and antioxidants, colorful vegetables. Okay? 1/4 is protein, and 1/4 is carbs, low glycemic carbs. If you want to get fancy with this, you can say, you know what, I'm going to eat all my carbs at one time and all my protein another time. But eventually, effectively, this is the plate. Like I told you, it's nothing fancy. Most of you have had parents or grandparents who told you this, right? Except that we live at a time right now when the biohacking community has come up with all this other stuff. And they've gone extreme, like it's all carbs, or all protein, or all fats, right? This is the most balanced way to eat. This will keep you healthy, this will keep you energized, and this will keep your blood sugar under control. Okay? Any questions so far? All right. Okay. I get a lot of questions on supplements. And yes, there's multivitamins, omega-3s, vitamin D, and again, we're going to do a webinar to cover all of that. There's a lot to cover. But I want to talk about one supplement, a group of supplements called adaptogens that most of you are not aware of, that most of my athletes use. Okay? The reason I chose this was because adaptogens have been around for thousands of years. They have been around and used by most ancient civilizations. So whether you go from the Inca tribe all the way to Siberia to China, they have their version of an adaptogen. So you may have heard of this. Ginseng is an adaptogen. Rhodiola is an adaptogen. Maca is an adaptogen, right? Adaptogens do what the word says. They help you adapt with stress. So if you're going through a period, like my athletes, like right now in golf, they are going to be playing 3 majors in a space of about 12 weeks. Lot of travel. Travel abroad, come back, more majors. It's a lot of competition right now. Now's when they will use adaptogens. So the tribes found out there were these natural herbs that allow them to deal with stress. Physical stress like war, childbirth, and psychological stress like famine. Okay? So these things have been around for a long time. You can get blends, look them up. They're called adaptogens. You can go to Amazon, you can find a whole bunch of adaptogens. Get a blend of adaptogens and have them in your travel bag. If you are going through a period of time in business when it's going to be pretty stressful, start prepping that. What it does is, when your energy starts dropping down because you're so drained, adaptogens push it back up. They keep your energy level stable. That's what it does. And there's not many things that I know of that are naturally occurring that can do that. Okay? They don't control your blood sugar. They don't help you age faster. They literally stabilize your energy. When you feel drained, adaptogens will help you come back to baseline. Okay? There is one other supplement I would mention, vitamin D, especially pertinent right now. It's really important that every single person in this room, you need to know your vitamin D levels. Vitamin D, now we know, controls about 5,000 genes, from sleep, which are genes that control your sleep, to how well you burn fat, to your energy levels, to how well you age, how well you prevent cancer. Vitamin D, okay? Majority of people are running low. You want your vitamin D levels, if you're in America, between 45 and 55. More is not better. So if you're 80, it is also going to dampen your immune system. Okay? There's a Goldilocks window there. You want it between 45 and 55. So really important. If you don't know what your vitamin D level is, single-handedly one of the best things you can do for yourself. Go get a blood test. It's very cheap nowadays. It's about 30, 40 bucks. You can get one done. And then you can supplement accordingly. All right? Okay, that's all I'm going to say about supplements. The next important point I want to talk about is hydration. Most of us, from basic biology know 70% of our body is made out of water, right? That distribution, though, is not equal. So like, for instance, the bones don't need much water. The kidneys, the liver, the heart, the brain needs a lot of water, okay? So I show this graph to my teams. I show them to my athletes. I show them to managers. Look at this, and if you look at the bottom, if you go down to like 2% dehydration and go up, you'll see your performance drops from 100 to 90. 2% dehydration. So I guarantee you, almost everybody in this room is 2% dehydrated right now. You have a 10% drop in performance, mental and physical performance. And just to let you know, 2%, you're not going to know. You're not going to feel thirsty. You're not going to feel tired, right? This is an edge that you're giving up. So my rule is, whatever you weigh in pounds, drink half of that in ounces of water throughout the day, okay? Does coffee count? Yes, 2 cups. Does tea count? Yes, as much as you want, okay? But half the body weight in ounces of water. Remember, I told you, my athletes, they don't do anything fancy, but they do this. You cannot compete. If you're going to give up 10% edge to an athlete in today's world, you're done, right? So this is really, really important. Blood sugar, keep it under control. Get some adaptogens, okay? Make sure you hydrate before you get thirsty, before you realize, oh my God, I need to drink, okay? And there are fancy, like Jerry uses something really fancy. He says he's not technical, but Jerry, hold up your flask. See that? So he has one that actually reminds him. It turns, what does it turn, blue? It turns like a blue color to tell him, hey, you need to drink. And that's how he does it all the way. You can set your alarms. You can do all these things, but make sure half your body weight in ounces of water, okay? Now I want to talk about, I use the word kinetics. I don't use the word movement, because movement is very linear, but kinetics involves joints and how you create movement and all this kind of stuff, right? So whether it's, what I'm going to show you, in 2017, I was the doctor for the American President's Cup team. And Tiger was coming back from surgery. And he was the assistant captain. And for a whole week, I was in the gym and he would be in the gym at the same time. And what I'm going to show you is exactly what he worked on, okay, with some nuances. So if I tell you to imagine someone old, okay, close your eyes and think of someone, think of a picture of an older person. Invariably, you will imagine someone whose shoulders are rounded, back is curved, hips are short, and they're like this. Because universally, and I've worked all over the world, in the ERs, people age like this, universally like this, because of the way gravity works. But it's a vicious cycle. As you age, and you age this way, you turn your shape this way, you compress all your vital organs. Your lungs get compressed, your heart gets compressed, your bowels get compressed, your liver gets compressed. So you age faster. And so you get more rounded, and you get more compressed, and that's a vicious cycle. Okay? So to combat this is something you should do every single day. Okay? There's a whole bunch of stretches you could do. You could YouTube this. But if I were to cut it down to 3, if you did this 3, okay, and hold each posture for a minute. If you're brushing your teeth, you should be doing this. Okay? Every day. Every day. So some of the things I'm going to tell you is not every day, but the stretches are every day because you want to combat gravity on your hips and your shoulders and your back. 3 key areas, okay? These 3 stretches, if you do them one on each side for a minute, you will notice a drastic change. Forget about pain, forget about all that stuff, just from an aging perspective. Because would you have any energy if you look like this? No. Your lungs can't work, your brain can't work, nothing works. So one of the key things for energy is to get your posture right again. And you do that by doing this, okay? Every single day. So from there, there's strength training. Now, I don't want, again, I'll cover this in the webinar if you want to. There's a lot of details into how much strength training you want to work. But fundamentally, if you have more strength, you will age better. It is one of the most predictable predictors of aging. Those who are strong age better. Okay? So strength training is really, really important. Also, adding muscle will keep you slim and will energize the whole system. By definition, to have muscle mass, you have to have energy, and to have energy, you have to have muscle mass. So the thing works together, right? That's why strength training is really, really important. Now, here's the nuance. Strength training, 3 times a week. No more than that. Twice. A lot of pro athletes only do twice. The myth is they do it every day. They don't. They used to. It's all changed now. Strength training is twice, most 3 times a week, because you need to let the body recover between sessions, number 1. Okay? Number 2, when you do the strength session, don't combine it with cardio. Okay? These athletes, when they're doing strength work, majority of the time, they are not tired. They don't come out and they go, oh my God, I'm going to throw up. You never hear them say that. They used to back in the day. Nowadays, that's not how they train. So they will do 5, 6 reps, and they still have 2 or 3 reps left in the tank, and they're okay with that. Because the idea is not to burn the body. Okay? I told you, when I was with Tiger in the gym, he wasn't lifting that much. And he wasn't like dead at the end of the lift. He's still very energized. And done correctly, that session should leave you extremely energized. Which is why you'll see Nadal, most of the time, before a match, in the gym, lifting weights. But not to a point where he's exhausted. It's priming the system. Okay? So 3 times a week, Don't stress it out. You should still have, when you come out of the gym after a strength session, you should say, I still got like 20, 30% left. If you can feel like that. If you say, I've got 80% left, you need to go back to the gym. Okay? But if you have 30% left, that's perfect. Right? And just like how I showed you the food plate, right? We've reduced cardio to high-intensity exercises or running or something like that. Cardio is a balance. You have to work on all three components. Agility, you could use a sport. You play racquetball, tennis, soccer, whatever it is, that's a form of agility. Dancing is a form of agility, but you have to incorporate agility. Most people do not do this. Okay? So plyometrics is a form of agility, right? You have to do speed work. Even if you can't run, walk fast, really fast. Okay? And then you have the classic endurance. So 3 times a week, you want to do cardio. Not on the same days that you do the strength training. Because if you combine them, you will lose both benefits. So most pro athletes will separate them. They lift, or if they really want to do something, they'll give it about an 8-hour window before they'll do some cardio. And they will not do high-intensity cardio, okay? So cardio, 3 times a week. 1 day is agility work, which is usually no more than 30 minutes. If you really do it, right? 1 day endurance, which is about an hour. That's how much you need. If you want to energize the system. Again, I'm talking about energy, right? I'm not talking about looking good in a swimsuit. I'm talking about energy. You need about an hour of endurance. Now, the hour of endurance is not taxing. Most professional tennis players now walk. They used to run, and they realize they can't play. Roger Federer, he set the bar now. Playing to his 40s. They can't do that by running. So a lot of them walk. And walking is such an underestimated endurance activity. Okay? If you want to make it harder, put a backpack on, put an incline on the treadmill, but you got to do it for about an hour. Right? And then 1 day is speed. Walk really fast, run really fast, whatever you can do, but do it really fast as you can. Recover, catch your breath, fully recover. If that takes 2-3 minutes, it's fine. Right? A lot of the times when we do this work, the athletes are only working for 10 seconds. They're on a bike and they're going as fast as they physically can for 10 seconds, and then they recover for 2 minutes. And then they do 10 seconds work, really hard. True speed work to get energy is that. Okay? So, split them up. Cardio, split them up to 3 days, 3 separate events. Make sure you cover agility, make sure you cover speed, and make sure you cover endurance. Most people lack one of these. Okay? All right. Now, I use the word revitalize. You can substitute this for recovery, and you make it even more specific, you can call it sleep. Okay? When I wrote my book, I had a chance to interview Usain Bolt's team, and this was a quote that left me extremely perplexed. Okay? He said 50% of his training is rest and recovery because he needed his body to absorb the training that he was doing. So the sleep part I got. I've heard that many times. But I was very confused. What does it mean for the body to absorb training? Why would one body absorb training and the other not? So many years of thinking about this, going down many rabbit holes, I realized, and this is actually very simple. When you train, you're ripping things apart. You're damaging the body with the hope that the body will rebuild it stronger and better. And if you keep doing it, you rip it apart, you repair it. You rip it apart, you repair it. Eventually, years down the line, you end up in a much better situation than you are now, right? So training is ripping things apart. Recovery is when you rebuild all of that and you get the benefits of the damage that you caused, okay? So, if you cannot recover, you don't have time for recovery, you shouldn't go rip things apart. Because if you rip things apart and you don't have time to repair it, you are going to get injured or sick. And for sure, you're going to run out of energy. Right? Again, it's not a fancy concept. It's really simple. That's why these athletes now, like LeBron James, I think it was in the Forbes article 2-3 years ago, $1 million a year on recovery. I'm sure it's exaggerated. But just to point out, right? They do a whole variety of things, which for us, I'm going to boil it down really simple. Sleep. Make sure you sleep. Now, question is, how many hours I need? Again, I'll cover this more in the webinar, but honestly, the window is between 6 and 9 hours. And the reason it's that, why it's not more precise, is because it comes down to sleep cycles. We sleep in waves, okay? One wave is typically about 90 minutes, okay? So you're supposed to get, in an ideal situation, 5 of those cycles. So 5 times 90 is where we get the typical 7 to 8 hours sleep. But some people, a lot of the presidents, United States presidents, their sleep cycles are only 45 minutes, which is why they can sleep 5 hours and they feel great. That's why one answer doesn't fit everybody. But you want to get 5 sleep cycles. You can wear your Oura Ring, the Whoop device, your Apple Watch, that will give you some idea about this kind of stuff. But effectively, the bottom line is you must get your sleep. If I can't sleep, I'm not going to work out. Don't do that, because you're going to get sick. You're going to get injured. Okay? Now, sleep deprivation. Listen, I'm as guilty as anyone. When I was training as a surgeon, my God, I was so bad. But I was also in my 20s, and I got away with a lot of things. And now I prioritize sleep more than anything else, because I realized when I started studying this whole performance industry, sleep deprivation is so harmful. First of all, sleep deprivation is going to add to your body fat, both on the outside and on the inside. Okay, and I took the slides out. I can go into detail as to why that happens, but basically you can't control your hunger and your satiety, meaning you're hungry all the time, and when you eat, you don't feel full. So you're constantly craving. That's what happens with shift workers in the ER. A lot of us will put a lot of weight on. Sleep deprivation does that. The second and more important thing that I wanted to inform you guys is that it affects the immune system. If you're sleep deprived, your immune system will not work as well. So you're more likely to pick up coughs and colds and get sick, which as a pro athlete, that's disastrous, right? But more importantly to us, I want to show you this. So this is my book, okay? If you look at this, right, this is a day cycle from 6 a.m. to 6 a.m., 24-hour window. And you see how it's color-coded? Now, if you see the one in green, okay, between the hours of 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., that's when physical repair happens. From 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., psychological repair. So the time when you're asleep is when a lot of physical and psychological repair is happening. And the idea behind that is that's when you're in deep sleep. So if you don't have that, okay, and just to give you an idea, we are all, right now, in this room, all of us, with no exceptions, are making abnormal cells, which, if left unchecked, will end up as cancer. The reason we don't have cancer is because our immune system, there's a cell, when I was in medical school, this is the cell I wanted to be, the natural killer cell. Runs around the body, picks up this abnormal cell, and destroys it. And that's how we don't end up with cancer, okay? That happens throughout the day, but mostly between the hours of 10 and 2, when you're in deep sleep, the physical repair. So if you're not sound asleep in that time, you're going to end up with a higher risk of cancer, which is why in 2002, it's 20 years ago, the World Health Organization classified cigarette smoking and sleep deprivation in the same category for cancer, as a risk for cancer. Okay? So sleep is the best anti-inflammatory that I know. Sleep is the ultimate performance edge. But lack of sleep is going to do bad things to you, okay? Which is why sleep deprivation, they've shown now, significantly shortens your lifespan. All right? Now, I know the theme of this event is connection, so this is also very, very important. And as part of this, that's a picture of me with the Hadza tribe. That's the chief of the Hadza tribe. I spent 7 days hunting, living, gathering with those people. Because I was so tired of the bullshit people were telling me about the hunter-gatherers, I was like, I want to go see it for myself. So I spent time with them, and I learned a lot of things. How we've gone there's so much beauty in where we live right now, but we've also moved away and made things very difficult for us when it doesn't have to be that way. Okay? And the Hadza chief, very wise man, told me something that I'll take to my grave. He said, I am because we are. I am because we are. Okay? I'll add to that phrase that I've heard many times, that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. And when I put them together, I understood why. Your energy journey has to be with others. You need to find your tribe. Doing this alone is going to be very difficult. Oh, this is another secret. None of my athletes do it alone. Maybe one or two. But even them, they have a team. They don't share with other players. But a lot of other players nowadays work with other players. They do it together. Because together, you'll go further. Okay? And then I'll leave you with this. When it comes to health, I think Dalai Lama sums it up best. And of all this whole thing, the first 2 sentences, right? We sacrifice our health in order to make money. Then we sacrifice our money in order to regain health. It does not have to be this way. You can have both. Jerry can tell you that. You can have both. Okay? And so your health is your ultimate gift. It is also your prime responsibility, and you have complete control over it. All right? So, on that note, my man Jerry is going to come and talk about clarity.
I told you he'd be good. He saved my life. So as we started working together, we quickly realized that, as he had up on an early slide, that clarity and mental clarity and physical energy go hand in hand. And that's why we started working together, because I spent all my career thinking about mental clarity. He spent his career on physical energy. And so that's one of the reasons why, when I heard the theme of this convention, or back getting together, it's great to see everybody together again, I loved the theme of connect. I think human connection is one of the most valuable things, if not the most valuable thing that we have. And along with the theme of connect is story. Then Heath and Rob were talking about story earlier, but when we have story, then we can work with our clients and our team and our community, as you saw earlier today in that check that you gave, and the carriers, which is all of you. And so all of those things go hand in hand, that the better we can get at that, the bigger opportunities we're going to have. And then when you have the physical energy, kind of the sky's the limit. Well, last time I was here, I can't believe it was 3 years ago, we talked about technology and impact technology is going to have. Jeff touched a little bit on that earlier. And I labeled it the tidal wave of the technology and exponential growth and how it's going to affect all of us. And I talked about it in terms of the next 10 years. And little did we know how COVID would accelerate that. But what we talked about, and I'm just going to hit it briefly, is that the information and data, if that was our value, a lot of us, that's in the past, our value was how much information and data that we had. Big data and machine learning and Google is having an impact on that. It's basically free now. Not that we don't use it, but we don't have to have that in our head anymore because the technology is doing that for us, and it's getting better and better. 5G has amplified that, and it's going to continue to. Well, what I believe is next, and it's pretty close behind, is our knowledge. If our value is the knowledge that we have in our head, artificial intelligence is moving so fast, it's going to be able to solve a lot of things that we currently solve as humans. And so I believe that those are still extremely valuable, but we're going to use the technology for the data and information and the knowledge soon to come. I love the fact that you guys are, in essence, disrupting yourselves with what you're doing with Simply IOA. And I believe it's not too far as technology continues to get faster, where it's not just going to go from personal lines, but it's also going to go into commercial lines as to what that technology is going to do or can do and how that's going to impact us. I believe that if we live in that world, then we're going to be commoditized. And the computers will be able to do a lot of those things faster than we can. So what do we have left? And this is what I'm so excited about this industry especially, is what we have left is wisdom. And the way we share our wisdom is through story. And when we share our story, it creates human connection. And human connection creates emotion. And most people buy what they buy based on emotion, based on people that they trust, based on human connection. And so if we can focus all of our energy on how do we connect better and then use the technology that's coming, we will have the biggest advantage that we've ever seen. I call it an unfair advantage. And in that tidal wave I was talking about, I think we can all learn to ride that tidal wave instead of get drowned by it. Real quickly, when we work with producers and executive teams, we talk in the very first workshop, we talk about the 3 critical mind steps of peak performers. And the very first thing of that is connect on purpose. We have to, and it starts with knowing ourselves. I'm going to show you a tool real quick as to how we can do that. We have to know ourselves. Secondly, it says, know your team. So as Ara was talking about, if we want to go far, we have to have a great team around us. But most people don't really understand the essence of each other. I believe it's virtually impossible. We say that, I don't understand why people don't just do things the way I do. Well, we're all different. And so if we can learn why they do what they do and we do what we do, we can communicate and work together better. And then the last piece of that is know your clients, your allies, and your enemies, which if we can align with them, we're going to then be able to connect, which then we'll be able to do business together. I'm going to go through this really quickly, but there's 3 parts of the mind that affect us. And the more we know about this, it's all science-based, the better off we'll be. The very first thing when we're making a decision has to do with our motivation. Then once we're motivated, it's how we take action. And then thirdly, do we have the ability to do it? If all those things are aligned, then we can be effective. If one of the 3 gets out of alignment, we can probably still be okay, but if 2 get out of alignment, there's no way we can perform at a high level over a long period of time. Here's a quick example of these tools that I was talking about. When Rob said I'm a partner in the Y Institute, we believe that one of the best tools for motivation and knowing yourself is what we call a YOS. It's your why, your how, your what. Your why is what drives you, your main motivator. Your how is the process or system from a motivation standpoint that you utilize to live into your why. And the how and the what, is what do people count on you for? Ara, as an example, is why is better way. Everything that he does is he finds better ways to do things. How he does that is by thinking differently or challenges the status quo. And what he does, as you witnessed, is he simplifies things to the essence. When I know this about him, I can communicate and use language where we can connect really well. When I went through this with him, he was like, I wish I would have known this my whole career, because there's certain things that I do or don't do that have affected me. So when I mentored him, I use what I know about him, and then we go to the next piece, which is the action he takes, as to how he naturally takes action, in what order. As we said, we're going to have a webinar to talk about this because it's a lot of information in a short period of time. But here's what we do with teams. When he said you have to have a team around you, well, how important would it be if you knew exactly why they did what they did, how they did it, and what they did, and what was the action that they took, and get people in the right seats? That's what we do when we're working together, when I work on the clarity piece and he works on the energy piece. We're going to offer you to get you started, as the Y Institute, as a gift to you. If you're interested, we're offering you a free Y. It's a $50 value. If you want to take it just to get a feel for what motivates you, what drives you, you can take that. Just hit this QR code and you can get it. If you do that, you'll get a email where you can upgrade to that full YOS. We're not here to sell you a bunch of stuff, but just, I think it's that important to get to know yourselves that we're offering that for you. In addition to that, if anyone who, Ara's going to talk real quick about this webinar, anyone who joins the webinar will get their YOS and that other tool, Colby, and that's what my part will be talking about during that webinar session. So Ara, why don't you come up and talk real quick about what that is?
Real simple. Normally when Jerry and I do this, we are inundated with questions, rightfully so, right? Because you've all been told so many varying things, contradicting things, there's always questions. We don't have time for questions this time, but I felt that, as a courtesy to everyone, like we need to provide that. So we are going to host a webinar on the 6th of June for 2 hours, where I'm going to go deeper into a lot of the energy pieces, and you're going to talk about the clarity piece. And then we want you to go away, think about it for a week, and the following week, we're going to do another webinar on the 13th, just Q&As. That way, we serve all of you the best you can. Now, you don't have to take your phone out and scan that QR code, okay? All of you, seriously, take your phone out and scan the QR code, because if you want to join the webinar. But what I gave you today was plenty. If you just did what I told you today, like just those basic things, which is why I tell all my athletes, exactly what I tell my athletes. The difference is they execute because their jobs are online. So if you take your health seriously, I told you it's your responsibility, and you do exactly what I told you there, those things, you don't need to come to this webinar. But if those people, I know because I'm one of you, like I always want to know more. If you want to know more, then join us at this webinar. All right? That's it.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.